Oh, I'm sure that migration and economic themes will be relevant in the next European election campaign. And but I would like to focus the attention to other kind of issues or themes, that could be a narrative resource for the campaign. For example, the youth, the young people that suffered the general situation. 2 days ago, European Parliament approved a budget, a EU budget, in which the measure to promote, to sustain the young people is very, very high. Europe invests a lot in the young generation, no? And this could be a positive point of view. The second question is is a topic I particularly follow, is the gender imbalance. Because I'm convinced that, and in Europe invest to promote the struggle or the measure to contrast gender inequality, and also the human right. The European Parliament approved with a large majority the new measure to affirm the human right, to defend the human right in European space. And this is not a point, but unfortunately. There are 2 other questions that, in my opinion, could be relevant, but it will depend from the leadership of campaign. The climate change, the climate changes, because the question of the environment is central, and the artificial intelligence. We don't know, well know this point of view, but Europe insert this point, the intelligent artificial intelligence, the protection of data, the security, is another big question that could be relevant, but I'm not so sure of this. In Italy, it could be relevant the struggle between national and Europe for the debt, for the approval of Italian economical measures. And this could be a rhetorical argument against Europe, but I fear that migration and economic crisis will be the dominant topic.
Is it me now? Yeah.
From Sweden.
From Sweden.
About immigration problem in Sweden or economic crisis.
I think the immigration will be, an integration of immigrants will be a big issue in Sweden. Maybe not economics, because it's fairly good right now. But I do think one thing that is not mentioned before here is that the consequences of a hard Brexit, if that happens in April, that will have consequences for the whole European election campaign. From my point of view is that European politics and the question of immigration has actually made Swedish news more Europe-oriented the last years, because, well, we read about Macron, we read about what's happening in Germany, we read about what's happening in different countries, which we never really read about before, because it's kind of exciting, this fight between nationalists and liberals in a way. And I think that will also have a huge impact on how the frame will be on the European election campaign, that you have this kind of tension between liberals and traditionalists or nationalists, whatever you want to call them, populists. But there's a tension, and you see that all over Europe. So you can actually import that frame into your national politics and your national news about the European campaign. So I think actually there will be a lot of news about the European election campaign, not just news from Sweden, but also news from other countries, because I think people feel that something is really at stake here.
It's a kind of game. Yes.
Thank you. We have a minority coalition government in place in Dublin. It's been in place since 2016. And just this week, and it's supported in Parliament by a confidence and supply deal with the main opposition party. And just the day before yesterday, the main opposition party committed to renewing that agreement for another 12 months. So we will have national parliamentary elections in the first number of months of 2020. The reason they renewed this week is because of Brexit. And the other word that goes alongside Brexit is stability. So it was seen, and the main opposition party leader said that this was in the national interest, such as the significance and the importance of the fallout from the UK's decision to leave the EU for Ireland, that it would not be politically sensible to have normal politics. So we're not going to have a general election in 2019, and the minority coalition they've committed to keeping it in place. So I think in terms of stability alongside Brexit, because I don't believe Brexit will, I think we will still be in the thralls of uncertainty come the May elections in relation to Brexit. So it will be the dominant issue in Ireland, but it's not so much the outcome of Brexit in terms of what the EU does. It's the economic and the security aspects for us in relation to the fallout from the Brexit decision. And stability, I think, is the word that I would put alongside that. The other issue will be the post-crisis economic situation. And I think that's going to be quite local, because the contraction in terms of the Irish economy and the fiscal austerity periods that we went through, the consequences of that are still being played out, even though the economy is now back in a very strong position. We have a huge housing supply issue. Housing is the number one issue with voters. So that will be the number one issue in the European Parliament elections. It's a tangent away from the crisis, but it's national policy and national politics that will determine that. So I think if you look at the way the media is going to cover the campaign, and the way the public are going to engage, and the way the parties are going to campaign, it will be around national economic issues, and housing will be very strong in that space. So I think Brexit and national politics are going to dominate from an Irish perspective. There will be some reference to further enlargement and integration, and notwithstanding the very positive sentiment and figures that you saw this morning, the other data you haven't seen is there's no appetite for further integration. And if anything, that may allow actors in the political spectrum to take advantage of that in an Irish context. And in the European election space, in the elections before last, we had an anti-EU candidate, and he polled relatively well. I think if Europe starts talking about further integration, there's an opportunity in that space for anti-EU people to say, look, we have enough, but we don't go any further. And that is still a possibility in Ireland. But I think Brexit and the economy.
It's quite interesting that in this our very special, we can say, survey from the South country, Italy, France are immigration, populism. In the North Europe are Brexit, question of local policy, development. And what about the East of Europe? I'm very curious to know if you have a different agenda for the next European election.
I'm not so sure whether I can talk about the whole region, but at least when I'm thinking about, for example, Poland and Hungary, I would say that the elections could be, or the campaign could be mostly about the values. So values, because like democracy, for example, because the thing is, I'm not believing that I'm saying this, but I mean that they will be about the values. The thing is that I'm thinking about Poland, and after those 2 years of the current government and the fact that the European Commission was criticizing the directions, or the direction which was actually taken by the current government due to the public media, the judiciary system, the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court. So I would say that this is what I'm expecting, that those who are in the opposition, then they will say that the European Union is the guarantee, is the source of guarantees of the liberal democracy, while those who are actually supporting the current government, and of course the government itself, will present the European Union mostly as the organization which is interfering into the domestic issues, and it will be all about the sovereignty and national proud, probably also the traditions and so on. And I would also expect that it will be much attention will be also paid to the strength or the weakness of the European Union, and then the Brexit issue will came up because there are probably I've got the accurate number, it's more than 1 million Polish people living in the UK, and there's this huge question mark, what will happen to those people who are living there? And the same topic was used in 2014, but in this case it was used as the argument that the previous government was so weak that so many young people actually had to leave the country, and that was not about the immigration, that was about the emigration to the UK. So then I expect that after those 5 years we will have the similar topic, but put in a different way, right? So it will be still about the condition of the EU, the values that it represents, or the attitudes it presents to the national country. So I'm afraid that there will be much more about the nationalism and idea of the EU and the strength of this project, or the weakness. There will be just one more thing I would like to mention. There will be also a very personal issue. It's Donald Tusk, who is right now the head of the European Council. There's also a huge question mark. Is he going to come back to the domestic politics? Is he going to be like a major actor during this campaign? And if so, as you can imagine, the current government is like really waiting for that moment to really attack this person. So I'm pretty sure you can find it, you will be able to find this personal issue as well within the campaign.
In your campaign?
Yeah, in our campaign.
Thanks a lot. Very.
Be sort of a savior of the country.
Or the devil incarnate.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot. Very interesting. This different point of view that shows that there are different situations and different sensibility in the different nations that they are part of the EU. Now, moving to the deep in the how to study the election campaign, which instruments, in which way. We have 3 questions. Where should our attention be focused to? Which will be the role of the social network in the next European election, and also the risk in the using of the social network, like in the United States, like maybe the Russia, the Cambridge Analytics. So we are quite sure that there will be a great use of the social network, but that means on one hand, how can we study? Because probably in the last election campaign we collected the poster, we collected the political ads, and it was quite easy, of course, a lot of stuff, but it was clear which were the main materials produced by the political party. Probably we will be overcome by a lot amounts of materials, graphics, tweet, post, and so on. So how can we face this new dimension of the European election campaign? It's your turn.
Okay.
So let me say that as a researcher, my main interests are social network, and so I'm interested in try to study and observe the strategies of political actors on social network, so I'm obviously convinced that social network today are absolutely important in an election campaign. They are not the only important channel, obviously, but I would like to underline, obviously we agree on it, but we have to underline that work and observe and study social network is very hard progressively. It's very hard because if you think that instant messaging platforms are today the best channel of electoral campaign, we cannot observe what inside of this platform happens. But there is a second question. We know that Facebook is the main arena in between the different ones thinking about social media. I don't know if everyone know here that since last April, the public API of Facebook are closed and they are not available for our research. So it's impossible in this next election to have the same opportunity to scrape data from Facebook exactly as before. So we cannot observe Facebook, we cannot observe WhatsApp and Messenger. Not in deep, not with big data. Obviously, you can do it one by one, and not not just. You can do it obviously, but post by post, directly with your eyes on the screen. So it's very hard to do for the kind of research that me and Roberta Bracciale, University of Pisa do. It's a very problem. It's a very great problem. How to try to get data without do an illegal act. Because you have the opportunity to scrape the data, but it's illegal. And we are asking now, today, how to do the right thing to observe this next campaign on Facebook, for example. The same is for Instagram, for example. Another social network very important and in growing importance in the strategies. Obviously, no problem for Twitter, but it's the less important channel in the strategies. So I would like to put the issue on the table and reflect with you and think how we can do, if the researcher altogether, European one, maybe can have or do something with Facebook, Europe, Facebook, and other companies to ask to have access another as before to the data, because in this peculiar moment we are not able to do exactly the same work as before.
I don't have a solution for you, but I know some colleagues who have done it already. But I will come back to that. When I read your question, I rephrased it for myself. I said, what should I read or read again to better understand what's going on in the media environment and in the political environment? And what came to my mind are two very different authors. One is directly linked to what you just said. I think I need and we need to pay more attention to the Facebook policy and the change in Facebook algorithm in last January. The fact that they changed the rule of the game and especially the way news appear or do not appear in individuals' newsfeed. No, Facebook favors, as far as I've understood, them as sort of dinosaur when it comes to social networks. Not that much, but I mean, 50% of French get their news through Facebook, and but now since January, the new algorithm give the priority to the part of your social network that is worth to you, that is the people that you have already commented, liked, shared, etc., over pages, including media pages. And we academics are not regular users of Facebook. We are following journalists, we are following other academics who share a lot of news, but ordinary citizens do not follow journalists and do not follow. And I'm curious to know what this change in the algorithm has actually changed in the news people receive. And I will come back to that. I might be a bit long because we have data on Facebook and the way the actual movement of the Gilets jaunes are using it, and that's really interesting, connected to the media. But I will come back to that. Regarding politics, so first thing to read is the Zuckerberg authorship. Then it's someone who died. And I was thinking, what's going on in politics? There are a lot of things that are disturbing that we have difficulties to understand. And I was thinking that I should read again E.P. Thompson and you know the British historian of the working class in Britain, and especially his concept of moral economy of the popular classes. This idea that that among popular classes there are widely shared assumptions about what is fair, what is a fair functioning of economy, and it's especially useful to understand what's going on in France at the moment. People feel rebel against a government that they feel has changed the rule of the economy at their expense. And what is interesting in this concept, and that links to this huge debate about populism, moral economy is a conservative force. It's not a leftist force. Moral economy of popular classes claims for the restoration of the pre-existing order that has been disturbed. Because moral economy is based on an implicit pact with the ruling elite. If the dominants reinstate the perceived fair equilibrium, then the violent movement might cease. If it doesn't, that develop potentially in a revolution, because you can't stop because it's about moral, it's about values, what people deeply believe in. If I come back to Facebook and news media, as I said, some colleagues in Toulouse, they spent 2 days without sleeping, and they compared the coverage of the movement and the discussion that were going on online in Facebook groups. It was really difficult, as you said, to get the material. They had to have I don't know how many different profiles and scripts, etc., to get the material, but they managed it. And it's really interesting to see the disconnection of what the media say about this movement and what the people in this movement are actually discussing. It's completely distorted. There's a disconnection in terms of timing. The media mentioned things that have been discussed like 2 weeks ago in these groups, and the government sticks to what the media say, and when it announces something, it appears inaccurate, late, or missing the point, because they already have been way further than that. And then there is also an epistemological sort of disconnection, because the media provide an image of what the movement is and what it stands for that is completely distorted when you compare to the discussion the people are actually having in these groups. And these two disconnections have fueled the anger towards media. and journalists. They have physically attacked journalists because they feel they fail at providing a fair image of what their movement is. And it also legitimized the slogan that they don't need the media. Next Saturday, one of the slogans of the march is to take back control of the media, and they are going to the public radio and television. Zuckerberg and E.P. Thompson.
I would like to study this European campaign from 2 points of view. A European point of view. I would like to suppose that there exists a Europeanized point of view, and I would like to study the impact, for example, of the Spitzenkandidaten strategies in the campaign, as I suppose it will be invisible, but to choose a candidate is an effort to tend toward a personalization of competition. And another effort, I would like to study the role of European parties, because they match between national and European level. But, for example, I presume that the Green Party could be a surprise in a political field, I presume. But from another perspective, I would like to study from national perspective. For example, the choice of candidates in terms of gender, age, political influence, because I suppose that now the crisis of parties in the organized the selection of candidates could be reserved surprise. On the end, in Italy, there is a European Italian politicians in Europe are become more competent, are become and use they rule in a European perspective. But I fear that the strategy to change these politicians could be reserved some surprise. For example, from in my circumscription, in my region, there are a struggle between 3 or 4 candidates from Partito Democratico list, and the party doesn't govern this struggle. And it could be interesting to observe the dynamic that they will use to emerge. Using social network, for example, because I think that a national party will not do campaign on the field, because the important national party don't have financial resources, I suppose, and the risk is, or the opportunity is that each candidate promote themselves in a different way. But I would like to measure the list, the mechanism to compose the list, and the balance between some indicator, and measure this during the campaign, the impact of this, and try to observe if there are differences generational from age, from gender, from expertise, political expertise. And I think that could be interested to study this, the space, the opportunity, political opportunity, the opportunity that candidates will rule.